Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to the Oz and Crew Reviews podcast. As always, with me, my co host, Mad Matt.
Good evening.
And today we have a special guest, a returning friend from the Outhouse podcast, which we used to do, Test Zero.
And you bring me in for this movie.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
We
because
threatened it for so long.
the Outhouse, I wanted to do this for, if we kept doing the Outhouse, I wanted this to be like the 10th review we did, because the first movie we did was Dungeons and Dragons, which was a bad dragon related movie that had Jeremy Irons in it. And this is another bad dragon related movie that has Jeremy Irons in it.
Yeah,
Whereas-
but Dungeons and Dragons was way more entertaining.
It was more entertaining for all the bad reasons.
Yeah.
This one was just kind of dull.
This was more
It had good things in it, but this was just kind of...
This was more of a like competent story, but just not made interesting enough.
Yeah.
But essentially what my feeling is that this is a competent story that got shattered by the producers and the people making it got told what to do.
Yeah, because any conversation we've read about this online, people that have actually read the books seem to have a much more positive opinion of the books than people have of this movie.
Which is kind of standard for a lot of this stuff. Like, you read the book, and obviously they're going to have to cut stuff out of the book to make it fit into a movie. But even this one seems like they cut out a lot of very important things.
Yeah, we were pointing out
It was
there were
racing.
there were points where the pacing was all over the place. Like more stuff was supposed to occur leading up to something that happened, and we're just kind of like,
So, like, the whole time we're
What?
watching this, we're wondering, did they take stuff out of this? Is that plot hole because it was in the book, or is that just time compression for them trying to fit it into the movie? And we encountered that like 5-6 times throughout this film.
By about the midway point of the movie, we're just like, yeah, it's just time compression. This is literally somebody taking a story, snapping it over their knee, and just going, here's the important part. Do it now and go.
yep. Yeah, there is always a problem with doing that with any kind of like novel adapted to a movie. If you're trying to fit everything in, you're gonna have weird cuts like that. But most movies handle it better. Most adaptations of novels I've seen don't really have weird situations like that where what feels like it's later the same night, it's like, oh no, this is clearly a separate day because they've now forged armor for the
Or
person.
this is like several weeks later.
So to start out with, I think the important thing is to the wonderfully stupid opening line from John Malkovich, who plays the villain of Galbatorix. I
Did you tell
suffer.
Christopher Paolini was 16 years old when he wrote this story?
I suffer without my stone.
Is bladder stone?
As we found a Reddit post that pointed out, this line is so stupid for multiple reasons. It's terrible because Malkovich is clearly not trying at all in this.
Hardwood.
Like, he's hardwood. He's supposed to be intimidating, and the only reason you know he's actually menacing at one point is because he's scaring a guy who we've seen being scary to everybody else. That's the only bar of measurement we have for his character, because his acting's delivering nothing.
And, and he's not once in this movie does he ever come off as intimidating himself. Like, he never does anything that shows that this is a guy that's powerful that can be reckoned with. Like, they said that this was the guy that killed all the dragon riders and rules the world like this. But like, what is his deal? Why is he so powerful? Why is he so feared? We only know that he is feared because you see a guy cowering before him, but you don't actually see any of that intimidation come across in him. He just seems bored.
Yeah.
The man comes off as if he's made out of mahogany, and again, the only reason we're scared of him is because the evil, creepy, undead-looking wizard guy is the only one in the room, and he's emoting heavily that he's supposed to be scared, even though you can kind of just sit there and go, is this supposed to be scaring me? Because it's not.
And which is weird, because, like, the subordinate of the main villain put in a much bigger effort for his acting in this.
he was very much a Emperor Palpatine type, and he did the role much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you look at someone like Emperor Palpatine, and it's like, yeah, he doesn't have to get his hands dirty, but you look at this guy, and he just commands this force, this intimidation factor that Malkovich just does not.
But the other problem with the opening line, aside from the wooden acting, is as people on a Reddit post we found pointed out, is that Galbatorix knows it's not a stone. He knows it's a dragon egg. That's why he wants it back. Why did he call it a stone? Like, it makes him look like he has as little clue of what's going on as the director does, is what they said on Reddit. And it feels that way.
Yeah, I really do feel like the director was interested in this project, but then got forced into it before he finished reading anything. And that's because the producers also didn't finish reading anything and just kept handing down broken pieces of script and going, this is what needs to be filmed to finish the plot.
Right. and since you're so well at it, Matt, you want to do the usual quick rundown of the plot?
Quick rundown of plot. So Eragon is a farm boy. He's a hunter, not so good at it, but does occasionally come home with food. He's out hunting one night when the egg stone is stolen from the big bad, and I can't remember her name, the redhead who played Jill. Arya. Arya has the stone, keeps it away from the evil undead guy, teleports it somehow, and it ends up right in front of Eragon as he's about to shoot a deer. Starts his arrow on fire, misses the deer, but he comes home with the stone. When he mentions that he was apparently in an area that's owned by the king, people keep repeatedly telling him quickly to move away and get out of here and don't tell anybody about it. We don't want trouble here. Basically assuming that he's gone into some sort of thieving from the king now. He takes it home, hides it for a bit, and the next day the next day, sometime that evening, I believe, it hatches after his brother is gone. So he tries to take care of the dragon overnight. It eats a rat the next morning when it's hungry. And I forget what all happens, but basically he tries to take it around, keep it out in the woods, watching over it for a bit the next day. And then the day after that, I believe, technically, takes it out to go flying, which is when it suddenly turns super size. And, also when the egg hatches is when half of the cast of the main characters know that something happened. But some of them don't seem to want to let on to it just yet. Turns out that Jeremy Irons is a hobo that lives in the same village near where Eragon's living. And he had the vision, too, because he used to be a rider. Who knew? He does spread a little bit of word of the possibility of a Dragon Riders coming back because he, again, knows. And Eragon eventually gets him involved when he basically confronts him, but then also after he goes to town, but somehow, I don't remember, he just kind of suddenly involves himself later on, realizing something must be up with Eragon. I keep almost wanting to say Eragon. It's Eragon.
You're usually so good at doing this flawlessly. I think the terrible pacing has screwed you up.
It is a little bit bad. So I'm going to try to cut as much fat as possible. So Jeremy Irons helps Eragon get out of there after his uncle is killed, like Star Wars, and tries to help him from the Ringwraiths. The Ringwraiths follow them, and while they manage to kill them, eventually Jeremy Irons is injured. But actually, it's such a hodgepodge movie. Eragon gets a vision because apparently the princess is somehow tied to him through the dreams, and she also had the vision when the egg hatched. The evil magician undead guy tricks Eragon into coming over to save her. Managed to do so. That's when Jeremy Irons is finally injured. They get him out of there, but he then dies. They, for whatever reason, give him a nighttime flight really quickly and then cut away again. And they basically put him under a pile of rocks, which then the dragon turns into what looks like crystal.
Something like that.
Something to preserve him better permanently, apparently. Excuse me. They headed off to find out the rest of the resistance that they need to meet up with, which includes, I believe, a group of humans as well as elves and dwarves. They keep bumping into this guy in black. He shot some arrows when they were trying to get out of that keep when they saved the princess. Turns out he was one of the guys that, the son of one of the guys that backstabbed the Dragon Riders. In the last battle, he is accidentally freed by the bad guys and then proceeds to kick ass and therefore prove himself to the other good guys, even though they were nervous about him because of his past. In the big final fight, they literally skip time like 3-4 times really hard and get us all kind of confused. The princess was poisoned. Suddenly she's better. Suddenly they overnight got geared ready for the dragon, even though that's literally been there only like half a day, not even. How? Also armor for Eragon as well. And suddenly, just before the big fight, suddenly the dragon can also breathe fire, even though she's supposed to technically be too young to breathe fire yet. Which is something they hammered like 2-3 times in the movie.
And the worst thing about those time skips is that they go from Aragon showing up there to meeting the people to like their leader leading him to his suit of armor. Like this is clearly supposed to be like a separate day or something where they've crafted the armor, but they don't explain that, and it feels like the first thing he says to him is, "By the way, here's your armor."
They worked on our whole life for you. How'd they know? Get into the big fight. Big fight, decent scenes, nice action. The big main focus of the fight, though, is at one point the undead wizard guy summons up his own shadow Balrog thing to fly around on to be a replacement for a dragon. There's a back and forth fight. The dragon gets injured, and she seems to be fading. Eragon finally does the tail trick, which they mentioned earlier during their first time flying, and gets tossed, is finally able to stab the wizard in the heart, which is the only way to kill him. Gives him his own one-liner back, and then the two of them, Eragon and the dragon, crash. Eragon tries once again to do the healing magic thing, which he failed to do for Jeremy Irons, but apparently wakes up the next day and it worked. And then he goes off to meet the princess really quick, and then goes back to help build up the rebellion, and that's the end.
Yep. And then we see John Malkovich get angry, pull out a sword, cut through a curtain which reveals his dragon.
Map.
Yeah. Reveals his dragon behind it. It's like roar. Basically
Close up roar. You can barely see the top of its head.
Basically cliffhanger ending for a movie that will never come.
Nope. And rightfully so after how hodgepodge this movie was. If it sounds like I'm confused half the time when I'm trying to relay what happened, you gotta sit here and try to remember what did things happen and where and how, because the movie didn't bother to explain itself.
No,
yeah. This movie was even short by novel adaptation standards. This movie is less than 2 hours long, and you really needed at least like 2.5 for a story like this, because Eragon is not a short book. Eragon is a decently large book.
Yeah,
you can tell at times, because you can definitely tell when they broke the time barrier and went, light speed to the next thing.
And they don't even have like establishing shots. They don't even have like a long like several weeks later or anything like that, or any sort of voiceover.
No.
It's just like cuts from one day to the next.
Yeah, just fade black, or not even fade to black half the time. Half the time it's just a scene wipe, and then you're into the next one that suddenly says it's a day later in the middle of dialogue, even though they drop no hints of it. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, like the weirdest sign we had that the scene was switching was because we had closed captioning on. We just randomly see an asterisk at the bottom of the screen.
It's really is not a point in this movie's favor that some of the most entertaining parts was the closed captioning.
Yeah.
That's not what he said.
Sure.
Closed captioning. He's lying to us.
Dramatic music crescendos and fades. Really? Those are some great subtitles.
Rock music crescendos. You don't say, movie.
Because we have to tell that the music is dramatic, because the scene itself isn't dramatic enough to get that across.
Just come off as dramatic because that's how we meant it.
So I was thinking about what happened around the time this came out. I realized probably the worst thing for this movie was looking at the time frame it came out. I don't know if they were in theaters at the same time, but one of the things it was going up against around this year this came out was the 300.
Oh, that didn't help it. No.
A crappier version of Lord of the Rings. Like, they probably thought this was going to make bank because you had just had Lord of the Rings. The Harry Potter movies were still ongoing. But, like,
We're gonna hit those tweens. They
It-
don't know the difference. We'll
it-
get the fantasy flicking no sweat.
It just paled in comparison to most things you could compare it to. But the funny thing is apparently EA thought this was going to be such a massive hit that they actually not only made a video game, they had the guys that made the action Lord of the Rings video games make a video game for this game. They even used the same freaking combat system in it because I remember playing it briefly on the Xbox 360 before getting annoyed and not playing it anymore.
Ouch.
Which is funny because the 300 never got a freaking video game when that really much more deserved one.
Could have had one easily, yeah.
But like I think TZ pointed out while we were watching, it's like you can tell this clearly was taking borrowing ideas from other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this. This is obviously like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, there's some Willow in there. But like, I mean, in its defense, at least it's ripping off good things.
Yeah.
But that's still, it just kind of distills it into just a very homogenous sludge of meh. This really is just a very meh fantasy movie.
It's just a lot of tropes and cliches. And I even said, part of the problem is if you're borrowing from a bunch of stuff, is if you don't actually know what made that stuff special, it's kind of hard to replicate the feel of the thing.
Yeah, if you don't know what made it work and how to mesh it all together properly, it's gonna come off really stilted and weird.
Because as we've kind of hinted, like this, the way this starts out, Eragon is very much like a Luke Skywalker character because he's
Eragon is like Luke Skywalker. You got Galbatorix, who is clearly Vader or Emperor Palpatine. You got the Varden, who are like the Jedi.
Yeah,
and Arya, who is Princess Leia.
Brahm, who is played by Jeremy Irons, is kind of like if you combined Obi-Wan and Aragorn into one character.
Or Obi-Wan and Han Solo and Aragorn, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got Saphira, who is kind of like if the Millennium Falcon had a personality.
I kind of wanted to call Eragon like Luke Sky Frodo.
The one backup boy that shows up like halfway through the movie and starts becoming more and more a part of things, he's very much a knockoff of the leading character from the Thief games, Garrett. Garrett is a thief rogue who runs around in the black all the time. Your lead weapon, if it's not a blackjack to knock people out, it's a bow and arrow, and he uses that very frequently.
Murtaugh, I think his name was.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about that?
I mean, call him by name.
You know what's funny about that? His actor's name is actually Garrett.
Really?
Garrett Hedlund.
There's no way.
He was introduced after Braum was killed, and then he comes in. And he's like, "This is the son of the guy who killed all the dragons."
Yeah.
Yeah. This is. He comes out of absolutely nowhere. Like Saphira literally drops him into the plot. She's like, they're just talking, and then Saphira drops him.
Well,
he's our new party member.
He was there before that, but he just shot like one bad guy while they were escaping from the place where they saved Arya.
This guy reminds me of when you're playing a JRPG or something, and you're like 30, 40 hours in, and you kind of have your party solidified. You have all your party members. You know what they're about. You know what they're doing. You know why they're there. You know why they hate the big bad. And then they introduce the new party member, and you're just supposed to accept them as part of the group. And like, we already kind of have everybody we need. It's like, okay, Fang, I'll just play with you later, I guess.
I think the best way to describe him is like, you guys have both played Final Fantasy Tactics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine you're playing Final Fantasy Tactics. You already have Orlando, but then you hit a part in the story where Orlando just randomly dies, and you get a crappier party member to replace him. Because Braum literally dies right as this guy's showing up.
So it's like Final Fantasy V.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's like Final Fantasy II when you actually have extra party members. They're way better than any of your main crew, and then there's something gone.
Matt, you got to remember, nobody's played Final Fantasy II.
Yes, they have.
I like to.
But
Two's a pain in the neck, but people have played it.
But I think we can probably agree that the best performances in this were Jeremy Irons as Braum, which is ironic considering his role in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. and what's the actor's name, and Robert Carlyle as Durza.
Oh, there's a.
Durza, the shade, the wizard, the undead looking guy. Those are probably the two best roles and characters in this as far as the character performances by the actors.
I mean, Rachel Weisz's voicing Saphira is pretty decent as well. I actually kind of believed her attitude, but Saphira and Eragon have absolutely no chemistry. I mean,
Oh, chemistry.
Bowen and
Oh, yeah.
Draco had better chemistry in Dragonheart, and they're supposed to hate each other.
At least most of the time they hate each other. Yes.
And I think one of the funniest things about this is I pointed this out. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. I think it's uh, Digimon Hanso. He played the leader of the Varden. His name was a G Head. I pointed out he's the same actor that was in Guardians of the Galaxy that had the line where after Star-Lord says he's Star-Lord, he goes, "Who?" And I think that's actually probably what most people's reaction will be to this movie. Like, I bet most of the people watching this podcast don't even remember this movie because it's kind of evaporated into history.
I'm pretty sure this movie's been remembered in hushed whispers of the most horrible thing ever in the last couple decades. Also, by the way, shared images of Garrett from Thief. Tell me that isn't that other character from this movie.
Yeah, pretty much. That is pretty much it. And I thought,
Yeah.
like I said, it's ironic that
His real name's Garrett.
his real name's Garrett, and you said he looks like Garrett from Thief. Either you have anything else you want to add?
That's the thing. It's like there's really not much to say about this movie. It just kind of slides off like a smooth, like thoughts off of a smooth dragon brain.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have more to say about it going into this than I did.
Yeah,
than I
that's the
did.
sad thing. There's not much to say about this movie, which I guess is kind of that's why there's nobody that talks about this stuff. And I would guess it is a disservice to this type of thing because this really should be an inspiring movie for somebody who wants to be a writer. Because the fact that a book that someone writes and when they're a literal teenager that gets published, gets turned into this massive thing, gets made into a movie, and still ends up coming out like this, that should be inspiring because it's like the fact that you know that you could write a better story than this.
You can write a better story than what this movie turned into.
They're still publishing, they're still turning it into this movie, and you could write a better story than this, and they could turn it into a shitty movie. So,
Oh, I remember one of the other couple. I do want to talk about some of the other fantasy elements in this. There's the very obvious setup where Eragon is like Luke Skywalker. He gets this destiny out of nowhere, and his uncle dies. Why is it? And it's just why does it have to be an uncle? Like it's like that. You cannot tell me he didn't.
If it's the uncle, that means they can leave the space open for the parents to be introduced in a later point.
I know, but you cannot tell me they did not just take that directly from Star Wars.
Well, I'm sure Star Wars took it from somewhere else.
But
They took it from Disney. Every single child and main character in Disney is an orphan child.
Early on, Durza summons these weird monster things that are called Razak, I think. I can't remember exactly.
Ring wraiths.
The Razak, yeah.
They're essentially this movie's equivalent of the ring wraiths. It's just that instead of being cloaked figures, they basically look like they're made out of a mass of insects.
Yeah, they're like made out of bugs or something. They're like Oogie Boogie without the burlap.
And the cool expressions. And the singing.
And they basically just have the freaking
If
blades.
these guys sang, that would be phenomenal.
They basically just have the blades that the assassins from Assassin's Creed have just sticking out all the time.
And they ninja jump everywhere.
They ninja jump everywhere until they get strangled by a tree vine.
Oh god, the fucking introducing the magic. He teaches them these words. He asks them what's the words for these, and he starts teaching them the Elvish words for this magic. And then he starts just suddenly using the magic in battle. Like he's instantly good at everything.
Yeah.
He says the word for branch, and a branch comes down and steals this guy off him. Like, he didn't know that's what would happen. What if just like a branch just appeared out of nowhere and hit him in the head and hit Eragon in the head and he died?
The worst thing is. The worst thing is they built those monsters up as these unstoppable killing machines. And I understand one of them getting killed by Brahm's magical sword, but the other one actually got killed by being strangled by a tree vine. I'm like...
Yeah, it literally just turned into a plank of wood and just stayed
Yeah.
there and died.
Yeah, because it got grabbed and I think it got like thrown. And I was like... And I don't remember actually seeing it die for sure, but it just never came back. So I was like, okay, I guess it did die.
Yes, it's gone now.
And their equivalent of orcs are these things called Urgles that are just
Orcs.
they're just bald.
People, like
they're
just bald people with face makeup all the time.
Yeah, they're bald barbarians, and a lot of them happen to be fat.
And the whole time, like, Matt, you were pointing out lines in this movie before they even said them in the movie. It's like, looks like you just got promotions.
You are promoted. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I think Matt's exact words were, "I guess you're captain now," and then Durza goes, "Congratulations on your promotion."
Oh.
Um,
There's such easy cliches.
And then later on, when they meet the Varden, like, from what I understand, and I think I've seen people point this out about the books before, there were supposed to be elves and dwarves amongst those rebel forces, but everybody just looks like normal humans. I can only assume the ones that have long beards are supposed to be the dwarves, but you're not told that. You just...
I have no idea which one the elves are supposed to be.
Yeah, and the thing is...
It's kind of clear so much of the budget went into the dragon effects in this that they didn't have so much to put into other things like makeup or costume design.
And but the other problem with that whole thing is if there were elves and dwarves there, like a kid who was just like a simple farm boy, like a few days prior, is probably going to marvel at meeting
Them
elves
and just
and
sit there
dwarves.
going, "Oh, holy shit, you do exist."
But like we pointed out, when we get to this point in the movie, they're just skipping past stuff. They're not even...
Yeah, they skip through this whole movie skips over so much. Like one of the biggest problems, like the whole time, like I said, we were questioning: is this a problem with the book, or is just the problem with them skipping around the thing? Like because when he leaves after hearing that he was talking to the butcher guy and they were intimidating the butcher guy, and of course I shouted out Shire Baggins, but then it's like, but then of course that's just like the scene in Star Wars where it's like, but if they found out who he sold him to, that would lead him back home. So he rushes home and he discovers that his uncle has been killed, but like he's flying on a dragon to get there. He should be able to get there pretty damn quickly. Apparently the guys made it to them sooner than that. And then, but of course, if they did make it there, why didn't they wait for him if he's going to show up, or if they're going to come back, or what the hell is going on here?
No, we're just going to leave before they actually do come back. We're going to set the place on fire, by the way, so that way you don't have to waste time having a funeral for your uncle. Bye.
Yeah, so it's like they're rushing through all this stuff, and of course, if they're trying to get to the Varden and they have Saphira, why doesn't this? And now I'm sounding like, why don't they just fly the Eagles to Mordor? Why don't they just fly Saphira to the Varden?
Well, because they actually explained that she can't carry that many people for that long.
And she also doesn't have She also doesn't have fire
Brom
breath.
behind. Just take Eragon with her. If Brom said Aragon's the important one, just take Eragon with her.
True. Because I think, like, even though they come up with bullshit reasons for why they can't just fly, it's like, I don't think that if they just stay in the air, the enemies that are tracking them can really do anything to stop them.
Yeah, because it's not like they have dragons. They killed all the dragons.
Yeah, which that was the weird thing was, we pointed this out, is in the final battle, Durza summons, like, a weird magical smoke monster thing from the fire to fly around on.
Of the Balrog and the Fell Beast.
Yeah, and but it's like a weird thing where it's like they said, yeah, you know that we said all the dragons are dead, but we still want to have two dragons fight in this movie, so bullshit magic huzzah!
Random bullshit go.
That one might have actually been bullshit from the book, to be fair.
I'm sure it probably was, because, like, how else is the fucking wizard guy going to do anything about a flying dragon?
Yeah, how else are we going to have our big climatic fight at the end of the first story? But, yeah, that's just like, Oh.
It kind of feels like maybe you should have not said all the dragons were dead and have like another bad one available.
Hey, look, with the end of the credit scene.
Well, we know that fuck, I forgot how to say his name. Galbatorix.
Has his own dragon somewhere, but we never see it until the very end, and we only barely see its face for a second.
Yeah, and it's one of those. The problem with him as a villain, and we pointed this out, and like, granted, his acting is wooden, but he only has maybe
Two,
Four
three
lines.
scenes.
yeah, he has like 3 scenes where it's less than a minute of him saying anything, but he's very much a character where what he was told to us instead of shown.
Yeah, exactly. Because like in Star Wars, you actually see Vader come out, and he's like this clad in black guy, like throwing people around and intimidating. Tell me, I want those rebels. Tell me where they are. But this guy, he does nothing.
Yeah, yeah, they just do a bad job. And it's like, and even something else that came out recently that this was clearly trying to take inspiration was with the Lord of the Rings at the beginning of the movie when they're talking about what happened leading up to the story that's going on. They show Sauron bitch slapping people with a mace.
Right?
They don't just go, by the way, he's very scary and he had a ring, and then bad stuff happened to him, and now Bilbo has the ring. No, they actually showed you him.
That probably would have saved his character if they had not actually shown him on screen, or just had him not say anything, and just have it told entirely through Durza's reaction to him.
Yeah, go.
Actually, I got it. I got exactly how they could have saved his character. Literally show his, like, maybe only his hand and over the shoulder. Never actually show his face. Redub
Dr.
him.
Claw.
Yeah, have
Dr. Claw slash Darkness from Legend during the first half of the movie. You never see Legend's Darkness's face until after the halfway point.
Yeah, because I have a feeling. I have a feeling part of the reason John Malkovich was just clearly didn't give a shit is because he barely had any actual spoken lines. He probably was just like, "I'm only here for like 5 minutes. Why am I going to care about my performance?" Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
Like,
Reminds me of another actor. I'm trying to remember his name right now.
Like-
I'll have it in just a second.
Like, actually-
Orson Welles. Orson Welles when he did Unicron.
Oh yeah, he didn't even realize the role he was playing. So,
I'm
what
playing
was
a
your last
giant
role?
action
I don't know,
figure
I
in
played a toy
space.
that attacked other toys.
the funny thing is, Orson Welles still did the role well. He just didn't give a shit about it, though.
That's
just
because
a
Orson
testament to how
Welles
good
is
of
a
an
class
actor
act.
Orson Welles is, when
Yeah.
he doesn't give a shit about the role, he still does it.
But like,
free.
but yeah, it would have been better if they had just not shown Galbatorix, not like shown him directly, not had him talk. Then if they had actually they had done that scene at the end where he gets mad and he cuts the tapestry and the dragons behind it. The reveal for the actor who would be playing him in the theoretical sequel would have been like more impactful.
Yeah. Would have been more impactful if I just see him full on that point, and also show how much of a messy guy he is, because the only time he finally gets up to do something, he cuts the tapestry and immediately dragon. And also do a better shot of that dragon, because that was lame as ass.
Yeah, that dragon clearly did not have the budget that Saphira had.
I think it was just a spray-painted Saphira.
How she looks on the cover of the book.
I think it was just a spray-painted Saphira. I don't even think they really put any budget into it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just used a very similar model and just stretched it out a little bit.
The funny thing is, I don't think I've really watched this movie since like maybe around the time it came out. So like,
I have not seen it until now.
I actually
I
had
just never heard good things about it.
I was going into this expecting to have a more positive opinion than I left with, because I don't remember hating it this much. I honestly was thinking my thing was going to be like, yeah, I feel this movie is overhated, but now that I've rewatched it, I'm like,
No, this is pretty shite.
I'm glad I just paid for a digital rental instead of actually buying it digitally.
You don't have to worry about coming back to this movie ever again.
Yeah, because this is a movie that just, I mean, if you get something out of this movie, if like if it inspires you to read other fantasy novels or look into other fantasy movies, good. But this really is an inessential movie for anything.
No.
Just everything that's done in this movie has been done better in plenty of other works of fiction.
There's
Even in the 80s works of fiction.
Yeah.
like even if you're just somebody who wants to watch live action fantasy movies, there's so many other options. There are even other options that aren't that great that are still better than watching this.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Especially
Dungeons and Dragons is a
Dragons
better
is-
watch than
well,
this.
As bad as it is, it's a hilarious watch.
and the other problem with this movie is, and obviously this wasn't known at the time they originally produced it, is even if you like this movie for whatever reason, it ends on a cliffhanger that you're never going to get a follow up on.
Yeah. So, like, if you're a fan of the books, as I hear, there's like a lot of people who are like really big fans of the book series, and they want to see the movie, and like, I guess that's okay, but you're going to be disappointed by it. Even as a fan of the book, you're going to be disappointed by this movie.
Yeah, this is just straight up a movie that like should be forgotten by time, and I kind of feel bad for making us watch it now.
And I'm someone who absolutely firmly believes in media preservation. This is one of the movies that really is. I would not cry too many tears if this is one of the movies that is forgotten, and it really hurts to say that because I really do take media preservation very seriously.
As hokey as I find Hawk the Slayer, I would much rather watch that movie again than come back to come back to this poor thing.
Which movie?
Hawk the Slayer.
Hawk the Slayer. It's a cheesy, fantastic, like early '80s movie, but it's British made, so it feels like it's 1970s. Low budget. They got a comic book sequel and all that good jazz. Jack Palance is the main villain.
Okay.
There's quality for you.
But I feel like we've basically said everything we can say about this. Although just sitting here looking at the image I have for the podcast, and I'm remembering that I pointed out before we watched it how weird it was that when looking for a movie poster, there were multiple copies of the movie poster that had the characters in the same positions, but for some reason, some of them had their clothes one color, and some of them had their clothes the other color. And they're the same clothes, so they just did some sort of filter over it to change the color of everything.
Well, they probably did that thing where, you ever heard that analysis that so many movie posters are blue and orange?
Yeah,
Like, one of these is blue and orange filter on the clothes, so.
they just probably left it blank and did the filter over each one.
Well, I mean, because in the actual movie, his vest was brown, and
Which is just a boring color. I mean,
yeah, but
Then he gets the blue armor.
yeah, but I wonder if that's why they did the thing with the poster where they modified the color of the vest to make it blue, is to represent the armor he has later in the movie, even though that's clearly not what he's wearing on the poster. Which is the image I used for the podcast because it was just the one that was in the better resolution, so it wasn't all pixelated and shitty looking. Anyhow, I think we're done.
oh yeah, we're done.
So until next time, everybody, you have a good one.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.